Welcome back to our channel. Today, we delve into the timeless story of Job from the Bible, a tale of faith, suffering, and the quest for answers. Imagine losing everything you love and still keeping your faith. Are you ready to question the nature of suffering and the presence of a just and loving God? Join us as we explore the emotional journey that challenges our deepest beliefs, uncover the mysteries of Job, a man who faced the unimaginable yet stood strong. Have you ever wondered why bad things happen to good people? Why does suffering exist in a world created by a benevolent God? These are age-old questions that have troubled humanity for centuries. Stay with us and witness how this ancient chronicle still resonates powerfully in our present lives. Let's get started. In this biblical account from the book of Job, we encounter a prosperous individual named Job, residing in the land of Uz. He possessed a large family and extensive herds. Job embodied integrity and justice, consistently devoted to leading a virtuous life while maintaining a disciplined connection with God. Job, renowned for his faultless and righteous nature, he revered God and rejected evil. Blessed with 7 sons, 3 daughters, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, 500 donkeys, and a multitude of servants. Job was regarded as the preeminent figure in the East. Job's sons frequently hosted lavish feasts at their homes, inviting their sisters to partake in the merriment. Following these joyous celebrations, Job would conduct a ritual of purification for his children. Each morning, he would offer a burnt sacrifice on behalf of each one, pondering, "Perhaps my children have sinned and harbored resentment towards God in their hearts." This routine was customary for Job, as described in the initial verses of the first chapter. God, in conversation with Satan, extolled Job's virtues. However, Satan argued that Job's righteousness stemmed solely from God's abundant favor. One day, as the angels presented themselves before the Lord, Satan was among them. When the Lord inquired about Satan's whereabouts, he replied, "I have been roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." The Lord then posed the question, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, fearing God and shunning evil." Satan retorted, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you placed a protective shield around him, his household, and everything he possesses? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his flocks and herds have spread throughout the land." These dialogues between God and Satan are chronicled in the book of Job, chapters 1-6-10. Satan challenged God's assertion, claiming that if he were allowed to afflict Job, the righteous man would surely curse God. God permitted Satan to test this audacious claim by tormenting Job, but without taking his life. "Very well," said the Lord to Satan, "everything he possesses is in your power, but you must not lay a finger on the man himself." Satan then departed from the presence of the Lord. These events are recounted in the book of Job, chapter 1, 11-12. Job's world shattered when he received 4 devastating pieces of news in a single day. The reports informed him that his sheep, servants, and all 10 of his children had tragically perished, either at the hands of thieving invaders or through natural disasters. One day, while Job's sons and daughters were indulging in feasting and wine at their elder brother's house, there was a messenger arrived with the grievous tidings and said to Job, "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys grazing nearby when the Sabaeans attacked and took them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived and said to Job, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you." While this one was still speaking, another messenger came. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who managed to escape to tell you." Still speaking, another messenger arrived, saying, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. I am the only one who escaped to tell you. These heart-wrenching events are chronicled in the book of Job, chapter 1:13-19. In his profound grief, Job tore his robes and shaved his head. Yet, astonishingly, he still found solace in praising God through his prayers. Rising to his feet, Job rent his garments, shaved his head, and prostrated himself in worship. He uttered words of surrender, acknowledging his nakedness at birth and his inevitable return to dust. He recognized that the Lord gives and takes away, and despite his anguish, he praised the name of the Lord. Throughout these trials, Job refrained from sinning by accusing God of wrongdoing. This remarkable response is recorded in the book of Job, chapter 1:20-22. Satan, once again, appears in heaven, and God grants him another opportunity to test Job. This time Job endures excruciating sores covering his body. Job's wife, seeking to sway him, urges him to curse God and surrender to despair. However, Job resists her plea and strives to endure his suffering. The narrative skillfully intertwines two parallel plots, one heavenly and the other earthly. The earthly events are the consequences of a preceding incident in heaven, reminiscent of the conflicts portrayed in the book of Revelation. Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, arrive to console him. They sit silently with him for 7 days, demonstrating their respect for his mourning. On the seventh day, Job breaks the silence and initiates a dialogue, wherein each of the four men offers poetic descriptions of their perspectives and struggles. Job laments his existence, cursing the day of his birth and likening life and death to opposing forces of light and darkness. He yearns for the darkness of non-existence, feeling that life only amplifies his agony. Eliphaz responds, pointing out that Job, who previously comforted others in their suffering, now reveals his lack of understanding of their pain. Eliphaz concludes that Job's suffering must be a consequence of some sin he committed, and advises him to seek God's favor. Bildad and Zophar agree, suggesting that Job's afflictions are a result of his wrongdoing, and they argue that he should strive to exhibit more innocent behavior. Bildad goes so far as to insinuate that Job's deceased children brought their own demise upon themselves. Zophar adds that any transgressions committed by Job would warrant even greater suffering than he has experienced thus far. Job reacts strongly to each of these accusations, becoming increasingly exasperated. He denounces his friends as worthless physicians who cloak their misleading counsel with lies. This impassioned response from Job can be found in the book of Job, chapter 13, 1-4. I have comprehended and internalized what I have heard with my ears. I possess the same knowledge as you do, and I am not inferior to you. However, I have a longing to present my case before the Almighty and engage in a debate with God. Yet, you persist in smearing me with lies, rendering you all worthless physicians. Job questions why God judges people solely based on their actions when he could easily correct or forgive their deeds. He is perplexed by the enigmatic and incomprehensible ways of God, which surpass human understanding. Moreover, humans cannot sway God with mere words. As he cannot be deceived, Job acknowledges that he does not even know himself well enough to defend his case before God. Job yearns for a mediator who can intercede between him and God, so that he does not face condemnation in the underworld. He firmly believes that in heaven, there exists a witness or redeemer who will testify to his integrity, as expressed in chapter 19, verse 25. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end, he will stand upon the earth. In chapter, verse, Job declares, even now my witness is in heaven, my advocate is on high. The weight of suffering becomes unbearable for Job, leading him to bitterness, anxiety, and fear. He laments the unjust nature of God, allowing the prosperity of wicked individuals while honest people like himself suffer. Job desires to confront God and voice his protest, but he cannot find him physically. He believes that wisdom is concealed from humanity, but resolves to seek it by fearing God and shunning evil. Eventually, God intervenes in the divine dialogue, granting Job's wish to speak with him. During his speeches, God asks Job 36 times if he is ready to engage in conversation. God's response occurs amidst a storm, and there is a certain humor in the way he addresses Job. God reminds Job that he is the creator of everything, recounting his awe-inspiring acts of creation and sustenance, challenging Job to match his work. God concludes by questioning whether Job is qualified to judge, asserting that it is impertinent for Job to expect God to explain himself. This encounter with God leaves Job feeling small and unworthy, prompting him to respond, "I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer, twice, but I will say no more." In the second round, God shifts the focus from himself as the creator to two of his creatures, employing humor once again. He asks Job about his thoughts on the hippopotamus, Behemoth, and the crocodile, Leviathan, as if these extraordinary beasts hold the answers to life's profound questions. Job is reminded that he cannot comprehend God or the animal world, let alone the moral realm. Thus, God's main point is to question why Job insists on arguing with him. Job responds by acknowledging God's omniscience, and the fact that no plan of his can be thwarted. He now realizes the impropriety of his questioning and despises himself, repenting in dust and ashes. Although the encounter humbles Job, it addresses the core of his problem as he reconnects with God. The dialogue between them culminates in a magnificent and unexpected climax in the book. In the epilogue, the text transitions from poetry to prose as Job accepts that he should not blame God for their interactions. God restores Job's children, 7 sons and 3 daughters, as well as his properties, camels, and flocks of sheep, making him even richer and happier than before. As a servant of God, Job is rehabilitated. On the other hand, Job's 3 friends face severe reprimand from God, who declares that they have not spoken correctly about Job. This indicates that we should not regard their speeches as absolute truths. What is truly remarkable in the 2 rounds of dialogue between God and Job is that God still does not answer Job's inquiries or reveal his wager with Satan. Job, unaware of the divine wager, did not require knowledge of heavenly matters. He accepted that God had reasons for allowing him to suffer. It is important to note the contrasting perspectives between Jewish and Christian interpretations of the book. In the Old Testament, the Jewish view saw temporal life's problems without considering eternity. They believed that God's justice should manifest in this life, where both good and evil people would end up in Sheol, a shadowy existence. Conversely, Christians perceive suffering in the context of a greater vision of heaven through Christ's work. The hardships of this world pale in comparison to the promised life in heaven. Consequently, the book of Job only offers glimpses of life after death, with Job expressing the hope of meeting God after his death. But this theme is not consistently emphasized. The book of Job consists of 2 primary plots, the divine plot and the earthly plot. The book commences with the heavenly plot, depicting God's encounter with Satan in heaven. Satan, once an angel responsible for reporting sins, had grown cynical, doubting anyone's ability to love God for God's sake alone. He believed people loved God only for the benefits they received. A debate ensues between God and Satan, with Satan arguing his cynical viewpoint. God mentions Job, questioning whether Satan had encountered him during his earthly travels. God asserts that Job loves him sincerely, not merely for his blessings. Satan cynically contends that if God were to strip away Job's blessings, he would blaspheme like anyone else. Consequently, the divine wager takes place, with Job unaware of the bet's existence while the reader is informed. This encounter sheds light on valuable truths about Satan, particularly that he lacks omnipresence and cannot be in 2 places simultaneously. The earthly plot of the book primarily revolves around the debate between Job and his companions. The central question addressed is why Job is suffering more than others. Two viewpoints emerge. Job's friends are convinced that his suffering is a result of his sins, while Job vehemently protests his innocence. The exchange between them is suspenseful, as the reader knows that Job is correct. The book's structure with two intertwining plots serves as a reminder that no one possesses the complete understanding of why people suffer. Defending oneself becomes incredibly challenging in the midst of such misery. Beyond the search for explanations, everyone is confronted with a more significant question: can one continue to believe in a good God when everything seems to go wrong? The Book of Job aims to provide an answer to this question. Job's greatest pain is explored in various aspects. Physically, he is covered in sores from head to toe, experiencing weariness, exhaustion, and excruciating pain. Socially, he becomes a social outcast due to his physical appearance and the awareness of his recent tragedies within the local community. People avoid him, even mocking him, while he sits on a pile of ashes at the village's edge. Mentally, Job is tormented by the lack of understanding regarding the cause of his distressing circumstances, especially since there is no apparent wrongdoing in his past. Spiritually, his anguish is even more profound as he feels distant from God. Job cries out, pleading for God to acknowledge him, speak to him, or even argue with him. The spiritual anguish of feeling God's distance and disinterest intensifies the overall suffering. However, when Job finally engages in conversation with God, things do not go as planned. From a Christian perspective, the Book of Job can be seen in the context of the New Testament. It draws parallels to how God allowed Satan to provoke the death of Jesus on the cross, with Jesus himself asking, "My God, why?" As with Job, God does not provide a detailed explanation. This suggests that even the Son of God lost touch with the purpose of his suffering in the midst of the torment of crucifixion. Christians understand that life continues beyond death, and the problems of suffering do not necessarily need resolution in this earthly life. It is interesting to note that in the Greek version of the Book of Job, an additional verse suggests that Job will rise again with those whom the Lord resurrects. This hope of resurrection reminds believers that there will be a final vindication for Job and all humanity. Christians anticipate Jesus' return to judge the living and the dead at the end of time, where God's justice will be applied to all. This belief affirms that everything Job longed for is about to become a reality. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the Book of Job. We hope that this exploration has provided you with thought-provoking insights into the nature of suffering, faith, and the enigmatic ways of God. If you found this discussion meaningful and engaging, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll stay updated with our latest videos and content, ensuring that you don't miss out on future thought-provoking discussions and explorations of profound topics. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more enriching content in our upcoming videos. May your quest for knowledge and understanding continue to be filled with inspiration and enlightenment. Thank you once again, and we'll see you in our next video.